right. I think we're pretty good. So welcome everybody. This is I believe it's our 7th Open Conversations about Mental Health panel. And tonight, June 1st, is going to be on the topic of parenting elementary age students. We are here to help. We are really excited to have you join us. So we have an amazing panel tonight. Just doing a little bit of housekeeping. If you need simultaneous translation, there should be kind of a join here below the screen. And you just click on that and you'll be able to go into the breakout room where you'll hear the entire panel in Spanish. Please engage with questions in the chat and we can respond that way as well. So it is Tuesday, June 1st, and we have an amazing group tonight on our panel. My name is Stephanie Roberts. I am the Director of Partnerships and Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. I am lucky and fortunate to work with an amazing group of mental health staff in the district. And this is one of those opportunities where we get to share the knowledge and wealth of our staff and hopefully provide value to our students, our staff, and our parents. So just so we know who's in the room, because then we're going to introduce the panel. In the chat, if you are a guest, if you can just put if you are a student, a parent, a staff member, so the group and the panel have an idea of who's with us live. For those of you that are joining us after, we missed you, but that's the best part about recording. All of these webinars tonight, as well as the previous ones, are available via the recording on the district website under the parent portal. As well as under student services, and it says mental health panel. So we've got a lot of parents here tonight. Welcome, welcome. We're excited to see you. We are going to do some introductions. So as I shared, I'm the facilitator. My co-host Wendy Aguili will do her introduction, and she's going to be watching that chat and making sure that we get to most of those questions, or at least reference where you can get the answer for those. So Wendy, if you want to introduce yourself, and then Sissy, you'll go next.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We hope we can help out this evening, and we especially thank you for joining us on the last week of school. We know things are winding down, but certainly things aren't over, and we want to give you everything you need as you head into the summer, and we plan for our fall return. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you can join us as well. I'm sure you have a million things to do. My name is Sissy White, and I am the counselor of Bel Air Elementary School.
Perfect. Brian?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Arata, and I'm the 9th grade counselor this year at Mount Diablo High School.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Robin Fulmer, and I'm a behavioral health specialist for the district. I work in one of the social emotional educational collaborative programs. I'm a classroom therapist and also the parent of an 8-year-old.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kimber Kaiser, and I am the counselor at Wren Avenue, Woodside, YV, and I provide district support. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist. And although my kids aren't old enough to be in elementary yet, I do have 2 little ones at home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cree?
Good evening. I'm Cree Campbell Sheen, and I'm a parent to twin 4th graders in MDUSD, and I'm happy to be with you tonight.
Great. If you joined us a little later, at the bottom, if you're needing translation services for simultaneous translation in Spanish, there should be an option to join, and that will allow you to join the breakout for that translation. And please engage in the chat if you have any thoughts or comments or questions. So we are finishing out this school year with these mental health panels. The way these run is we have about 5 to 6 predetermined questions that have been generated from the group, as well as feedback from the survey or the form that we have on the district website. Each of the panelists will open up a few, they'll respond to a few, and then at the end, we do kind of check the chat after each question. So please look at that. And I just see that our amazing superintendent, Dr. Clark, hopped on. So I'm sure he would just like to welcome the group, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, I just want to Again, welcome everyone who's logged on to see this great presentation. I want to thank our team here of panelists who are going to share their expertise and experiences with everyone. And can't believe that tomorrow is the last day of school. And we probably need this talk tonight more than ever, just because it's been such a stressful year, and we want to have a good productive summer so that we can, come back in the fall ready to go. But again, I know transitions are hard. So as some of you have students that are moving on to the next grade, it's going to be okay. They're going to find another teacher that cares deeply for them and knows all of their special needs and strengths and weaknesses, and it all works out. So it is very hard leaving that previous grade and going into the next grade, but I'm very confident that that our students will have a smooth transition, and that the adults will be right there with them, caring for them. So again, thank you all, and thank you guys again for putting on these speaker series and stuff. I just know that we've received so much valuable feedback on them, and more ways that we can support our stakeholders, then I'm all for it. So again, thank you to the team for all the work you guys are doing.
Yes, thank you. Yes, like being a parent in the summer, now we're back on full time. So hopefully after tonight, you'll get some ideas about what we can do this summer. And then as you've heard from Dr. Clark and our board, we are excited to have everybody back on campus full time, Monday through Friday, every day. So we are getting prepared and ready for your students in the fall. So we're going to get started. As I shared, we have 6 questions, and our first question is going to go to Kimber and Robin. Kimber, how do I support my child to safely make friends and socialize? And what are some activities that I can try during the summer?
So first, we need to look at our own particular families. And with our own family, I have a baby, for example, so I have to be a little bit more careful how I socialize, because she's only 7 months old and she's still getting her shots and exposure. So what I can do with her and my 3-year-old is different than another family who may not have any younger children in the home that are smaller, or not have older grandparents or other family members who may have a health issue. So I think first you have to look at your own particular family. And then from there, we can look at what are some things we can do to help our children that are outdoors. And so one of the things that I've been doing is I've been going to the park. I've been having different students at my schools. They've been riding their scooters or their bikes. They've been going on hikes, and they've been doing a lot of outdoor things. And sometimes we've made a connection with someone in the neighborhood. Maybe it's been a cousin. So that's one way that we can help with building the friendships. So anything we can do that's an outside thing, I think would be something that would be helpful, or building with friends.
Great, thanks for starting that off, Kimber. Yeah, I have a lot of the similar ideas that you have, doing outdoor play dates with friends. My family, we've actually reached out to some of his classmates because he's doing a hybrid learning schedule and he's kind of in a bubble with some of them. I know it's the last day of school tomorrow, so you have very little time to get those connections made. But you do have one more day if you haven't already. And I think a lot of parents are perhaps more interested than you would think to make those connections after this past year of being home so much with their kids, or having their kids be in different smaller pods. So if parents had to go to work. Another thing I would think about is a protective factor. I've been thinking about this for the last few days just for resiliency and good outcomes in kids, is to think about what their interests and hobbies are. Because if there's an interest or hobby that they could focus on, that kind of gives them an avenue into a wide variety of activities. So maybe kind of thinking about what your students interested in. Maybe they're interested in science, maybe they're interested in outdoors. I'm sure they're interested in video games, but maybe thinking about some other things that you can do with them to build that resilience and protective factor of having an interest or a hobby. And then the other thing I was thinking about over the last couple of days is just focusing on safety. We've gotten really good at negotiating with different family members, our immediate family, our extended family and our extended bubble outside of that, negotiating what feels right for your family and for you. So having those kind of difficult conversations about who's vaccinated and what you're comfortable with. We've gotten pretty good at that this year. So just kind of carrying that on and having those conversations and making sure that you're comfortable and that your family's comfortable with the choices that they're making, outdoor, indoor, mask on, mask off. So just continue having those conversations, and I'm sure you'll find families and come to agreements that are going to work for you and work for them. We've had a lot of practice this year.
Yes, we have. We also, as a school district, have a variety of activities and programs in June. So at almost every elementary site that's open, we have a summer session, as well as at the middle school and the high school level. So if you've got older children and younger children and you haven't already signed up to participate in summer school at the schools, please reach back to your principal and your office staff. And if you are at a school that has the CARES expanded learning program, we have a comprehensive 6-hour-a-day program that students can go to from, and both programs go from June 7th to July 2nd, I believe. So those are additional opportunities that will be safe, that will be fun, will be engaging, and helping re-engage your child in learning, but also having a positive interaction and getting reacquainted back with school, fun school. So anything from the panel on, yeah, you want to add something, Brian? Brian and then Kimber?
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to piggyback on what Robin was saying. I think it's really important to tap into your child's interests and find out, what motivates them, what they like. What I've been talking to parents about is also not only the programs we have through our district, but through the city in general, the city of Concord and Pleasant Hill. The Parks and Rec department, they have all types of activities for young children. And arts and crafts, they have cooking classes like Junior Master Chef, a lot of fun, different things to get students engaged. And I've talked to a lot of parents who are like, I need to find a summer camp or something for them to do just to get them outside and engaged. And so those are a lot of avenues you can check also. They have a ton of classes. I've seen them myself firsthand. So definitely check that out as well.
Thank you. Kimber, do you have something to add?
Just a little bit more to add, and thank you for remembering Brian and Stephanie to add those pieces I forgot. But also to recognize for our families that sometimes we still need to have that little bit of distance. So there are some safe platforms that the kids can connect online. So if they're doing Roblox, if they're doing Minecraft, if they're doing like a Google Meet or Google Zoom, that's one way still for the kids to stay in touch, and that allows that physical distancing and that's safe for your family. So I did forget to add those. So I just want to make sure we're aware of those too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wendy, I'm looking at the chat. I don't necessarily see anything. Do you? Okay, so just reminding everybody that are on live, and then Cree, I will finish up with you. Please go ahead and add those comments or questions in the chat. At the end of every question, we do check the chat to make sure there isn't anything that we missed or we could add to. Cree, did you want to add something to that the first question?
Just real quickly, I was just going to add that DVC also has College for Kids. A lot of their programs fill very quickly, so I know some of them are full, but that is another resource that we have available in Pleasant Hill.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to the second question, and this is going to start off with Brian and then Robin. How do I support my child playing independently with less screen time, and what are some guidelines for screen time?
Okay, so a few things that I recommend to parents is, this one might be tough, but and I'm trying to practice it myself. I do encourage parents to reduce your own screen time, setting the example of like what healthy use is. And I think your child will, piggyback off that and learn from it and kind of, realize what a healthy amount of being on the screen, is. I read an article recently that it was called How to Raise a Low Media Child. And if you're able to teach your child how to play independently, it discussed that, being with them will become less demanding. And I don't want that to sound negative, but we all have children. I have 3 children myself, and, they constantly need things. They're hungry, they want to play, I get home after a long day at work, and I totally understand where all the parents that we have are coming from. But at the same time, if you're teaching them how to play independently, like with Legos, My children, they like to play with, or they used to play with trains going up, Thomas the Tank Engine, the Legos, the Marble Dash. And so all that, it fosters creativity, and, they get engaged and they start playing themselves. And then you can kind of just sit back, and it allows you to do whatever you need to do. Maybe it's cooking in the next room or in the same room, or, again, we're trying to limit screen time. So not necessarily checking emails, but, finishing up some last minute work if you need to get some work done. I would say spend time playing with them, as Robin and Kimber were saying earlier. Go out to the park, go do a scavenger, whether it's indoors or outdoors. Just try to find some fun, engaging activities that they can get involved in that don't revolve around the screen. I would say, if it came down to it, just restrict access to the devices. And my last, probably two biggest things that I can say is, one is be consistent. Be consistent with a routine and stick to it. I think structure is what children need, and that's how they learn, and they get into a routine. And so you want to make sure that you're consistent with however you're doing this process. And then the last thing is, I would say, is just, don't make screen time a reward or a punishment. Make its own separate thing. So that way there's no negative or, a positive connotation to it. It's just, it's a thing that, it's an option that you can do whenever, the time allows. So yeah, that's just what I would add to this.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. I like what you said at the end of not necessarily taking it away or giving it as a reward or punishment. I often find myself doing that as a parent. Well, no, you're not going to be able to play your video games tomorrow if you don't start acting right now. But then I'm like, wait, that's not going to work for me, for him to be off video games all day tomorrow. So make sure you're setting a realistic expectation and limit with your child. Another idea in terms of setting some structure around screen time might be to have a time of day where all screens are off, including yours, the parents. So all kids, all parents, screens are off. We're doing either independent things in the house, we're getting dinner ready together, or maybe we're doing an activity together. And I find that if I put my phone down, sometimes I'm like, oh, we're having fun and we're laughing and we're doing things where we're not just staring at a screen. So maybe pick a time that works for your family. The idea of saying, oh, 2 hours, that's the most, setting like a strict time limit, that might work for some families, that might work for some kids. Your kid and family the best. There might be, like I said, a time of day or something they have to do before they can do screens, and that can be the structure. So you need to go outside and play in the yard, or we're going to run around the block a few times. Whatever your family's priority is, if it's spending quality time together or making sure that everyone's getting some movement in, and all of those things are really good for your mental health. Staring at a screen is not necessarily great for your mental health, although sometimes we need some downtime. I was thinking about this too, that next year when kids are back on a full schedule and they're out of the house for 8 or more hours a day, when maybe they weren't doing that this year, they are going to need some downtime scheduled in there, and you are too. So making sure that that's okay and you're not overscheduled when we go back to school. I think that's a question later in the panel too. I also thought about kind of doing a hierarchy of screens, like maybe watching a movie together as a family is screen time, that where you're kind of engaging and interacting, enjoying something together, watching an educational show or nature show instead of watching people play video games on YouTube, which is what my son does. And I just don't think that's very educational. It's extremely entertaining to him. So we're trying to set some limits around that. And it's been difficult for my family because of being home and being on screens all day long so that I could do my job. That was something that was happening at my house. So we're kind of resetting for the summer, and I'm trying to think of ways to structure that so that we can all limit our screen time, because that's good for all of us.
Thank you. I also think having the conversation with your child, regardless of the age, around what do you think is an adequate time, should you be on for 8 hours a day? Because oftentimes I come in thinking, it's going to be this. And then I ask my son, who's now 16, but we've had this conversation for many years. And he's way high, like less time than I would actually think he should be on. So I always sometimes default to kids because they're actually a little harder on themselves than usually the parents are, or even as a teacher when I used to teach. So that's one area to engage your child in the conversation around how much screen time do you think is good and what is too much, because that will create that dialogue that I think is valuable as you're making those decisions. Anything from the panel, last minute thoughts for this particular question? Wendy?
I just wanted to say that I had done some work a few years ago around the idea of a digital diet. It's like, we know not all food is the same,
Yeah.
and not all technology use is the same, right? Like some of it is healthy, like we need it to pay our bills or, do research for a project. So do more of that. And, then sort of the passive stuff, watching TV, okay, maybe a little less of that. And then the passively watching somebody else do something, that's sort of like your dessert, right? You're going to do the least little bit of that. So, I'll share a graphic in the screen in a few moments, but sort of think of it as not all technology is the same and shouldn't be treated as the same. And there was also a question, 2 questions in the chat. One was more of a statement regarding signing up your children for programs. And it was a parent who was concerned that for parents who might have limited resources, especially in a pandemic, what might be some options to get around wait lists or, scholarships are limited, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other question is, I think it's a really valid one, that as parents who are also working from home using technology all day, how do they not feel sort of interrupted by their kids, and prioritize their kids when they have to work too, right? Both great questions.
Okay, great. Ed, other thoughts from the panel on comfortability of answering any of those questions, and or we can interweave our thoughts to try to respond to those in future questions. Sissy?
Thank you. I wanted to agree with kind of what you were saying, Stephanie, about engaging your child in the conversation if they're old enough around technology, and if they're young or old, really teaching kids about balance, about a little bit of balance, and talking to them a little bit about the life skills of prioritizing. So like Wendy said, not making technology a bad thing or screen time a bad thing, but really beginning to teach children about, well, let's take a look at what we have to do for today, what needs to get done, what can wait, and all of those kinds of things. So I think that is really, really helpful. And then for the question or the comment that the parent has about working at home and keeping the kids from interrupting their work, I would agree with kind of still what we're talking about, depending on the age of the child and the temperament of the child, right? Because we'll get into that question next, is figure out what your kids need before you're having to work. So like, say, for example, if your child is really young and they're energetic, maybe there's a small window of time where the child needs sort of a dance moves, exercise, stretch it out, get it out, whatever, before, mom, dad, grandma, auntie has to get online and do work. Or maybe your child has a temperament where while you're doing work, they need to be engaged in something else so they're not bothering you, right? So whether that's you setting them up at a small table next to you or on the floor with newspaper down, and maybe they're doing an art project, maybe they're doing fingerprinting, maybe you're doing work from your backyard or your balcony that day and you have given them bubbles to blow. So something to keep them occupied while you're doing work. If they're older, maybe just having those conversations with your kids to let them know that, like, this is the window that I'm doing this because these are the things that happen when mom and dad, this is what happens when I do this. When I work, these things occur for the family, for us. When I don't work, then that makes it hard for all of us. So just helping them understand the importance of work and why you have to do work and you're choosing to do work might really help.
Yeah, great points, great points. I've also seen Kimber, did you have
Just to add a little bit more to what Sissy was talking about, preparing your child. although my 3-year-old can play independently really well, one of the things I need to be better about doing is having snacks available for him to choose. He is old enough at 3, so definitely our elementary kids, if I put snacks in a certain area so he can self-select when he's ready for them, as well as having his water or his juice, as well as highly preferred things. Legos, like Brian was talking about, are definitely a hit in our house, as well as vehicles. So if I can get some things when I know that I'm in Zoom for a while, I can prepare him and then take little mini breaks and just check in on him. And that's, I think, kind of finding where, like, almost like we prepare our students as us as counselors, for our students to be prepared for their Zoom, for them to do their work. We try and meet those basic needs, go to the bathroom if they need a little bit help with anything, anything we can pre-plan definitely can help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on to question 3, and this is going to go to Sissy, Cree, and Robin. How do I support my child with self-regulation when upset? And how do I know when a temper tantrum of an elementary age students are excessive? Sissy?
All right. Well, I just want to say there's no perfect answer, okay, as a mom and a grandma, but I will say this, what I have found, and not just my own children and my grandchildren, but working with kids for almost 30 years, is very important to understand or get to understand your specific child's temperament. Every child has a different threshold to function within what's going on around them. So understanding that is really important, because sometimes when we don't understand our child's temperament, I think that the expectations for them to perform or not perform a certain way can be challenging. So let me give sort of an example of temperament. So, one child might be able to thrive in a very active environment or an active household where there's lots of people, lots of things going on simultaneously at one time, and they're able to thrive and be okay with that and still move and choose and do what they need to do. Another child might need a lot more structure, and they need everything to be predictable, right? So I need to know, when am I supposed to do this? When am I supposed to do that? I need to know what part of the house or space is mine, okay? I need to know what I need to do or can do when I'm upset or when I'm angry, right? So that's really, really important, is finding out why your child is angry is also very important, and making sure that they understand what they can do when they're frustrated and they're angry, because we all get frustrated and we all get angry. So not making getting angry or frustrated a bad thing, but helping them to understand, okay, so what do I need and what is appropriate in terms of what I can do when I'm angry, right? So if there's certain tools in the house, right, like a stress tool, a favorite stuffed animal, a calming area. It might not have their own room, because a lot of us have lots of people living with us, but that child needs to know, okay, when I need to bring it down, right, what do I need to do, right? Do I need to count backwards? Do I need to breathe? And where do I need to go for that, right? So that's that. What else did I want to say? It's just really helping them by modeling sort of the behavior that you want them to see when they're angry and they're frustrated. So that's just going to be really important. It's going to make it so much easier for you guys. In a classroom setting, the same thing. One year, a teacher might have a class with a totally different temperament than the next school year. So one year, that teacher may have an overall, what's considered a, calm, quiet class, maybe a couple students that they consider really energetic, or some would say, these are my like loving firecrackers, right? Whereas the next year, that teacher might have almost half her class with higher temperaments, or may have a more active gender, right? So the adjustment that would happen is, the year that there's more energy in the classroom, guess what? Built into the schedule, maybe the kids need to do some physical body breaks where they're dancing to music and exercising before they're diving into the work, so that half of the kids are not in trouble and in the office first thing in the morning, right? So I hope that answered some of that.
You said so many important things that I will piggyback on. I'm thinking of my own children. You know, I have sons that are the same age, 10 years old, but they are very different in terms of how they do distance learning. And so you can have one child that can just push, push, push and wants to get everything done, and another child that really, really needs the breaks, the body breaks, the go outside and the run. And the other one that's like, no, I don't want to take a recess, at home. I just want to push through and get all of these things completed. But sometimes, we know that even though that might be their temperament, it's not really what's going to serve them best. And so, we've built in a lot of time for, physical movement. So, you can do things like jumping jacks, push-ups in any type of environment. We all have different types of, living situations. And so if there are things that we can do that, perhaps we can get our heart rate up a little bit. We know exercise is really great for calming us down. Other times it might be just pushing pause. There are times during the school year where we just had to take a screen break, close the screen. We're not going to do this right now. We just need to step away. Screen fatigue is a real thing. I know that for adults, oftentimes, I'd find myself on many Zooms and just, gosh, I really need to step away from this. And so our kids have just done such an amazing job of, being present in their classes, but sometimes you just have to turn the screens off. Let's see, the other thing that I really noticed for my sons is prioritizing sleep. I know that if we have maybe, done too much one day, if they didn't get a good night's rest, that's something that's really going to impact them the next day and maybe for days, following. So that's something that I think we can all do is make sure that we're getting enough rest. I'll stop there for now.
You're great. Thank you.
Thanks, Cree and Sissy. I wanted to focus a little bit on we're talking about tantrums, and I want to normalize that kids act out more when they're with their primary caregivers. Most of the time, kids will take all their big feelings home or at the end of Zoom or the end of whatever their day is like, and they'll take it out on you. But I want parents, and I have to tell myself this when my son's having a tantrum, to know that an escalated person can't calm down an escalated person. So I need to take a couple deep breaths and really focus on calming myself down, because if I get angry and start yelling back at him, nothing gets solved or calmed down. So making sure that you're taking care of yourself. I like what you said about sleep for parents too. That's going to help us really respond in a way that's going to help our kids calm down. And then something that Sissy and Cree, I think, both touched on is just the basic needs. All behavior of your kids is they're trying to communicate something to you. So we can kind of say, hey, what's happening here, instead of what's wrong with you, which I'm often like, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? Like, why are you doing this to me? I need to go to work or whatever I need to do. But remembering that it's our job to help our kids through these really difficult feelings. So instead of saying, what's wrong with you, maybe saying, what's happening here and how can I help you get through this? How can I help you get through this really difficult feeling that you're having? And knowing that it takes some kids, depending on their temperament, longer to calm down. And in terms of what's excessive for tantruming, I mean, your kid the best, but if it's affecting their life negatively, they're not able to go to school because of their worries or tantrums, if you're having to kind of cancel things and reset your life around things, maybe that's a time to reach out for some support from a friend or a trusted professional or teacher or someone in your life who can help you out. If you're excessively worried about your kids tantruming, then I would say that would be a time to reach out. And then this has been touched on maybe in other panels, but if they're frequently hurting themselves or others, or destroying property that's, not just throwing a small thing across the room, but breaking electronics, things like that really kind of affect you, then maybe that would be a time to reach out. I think that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Great. there are, just so in case you are on with us live or watching the pre-recording, we have a wealth of resources on our district website. So under the parent portal tab, there are resources for elementary age, parents of elementary age for parents, and then secondary. And then the counselors have a very comprehensive website that a link is there. And if you don't know who to talk to, you can always contact the school, you can contact a teacher, you can go to those same places on the parent portal where we talk about elementary and secondary counseling resources. And there is a name of a school counselor attached to your school. That is always a great place to start, because we are here to partner and work with you. And I think, as Robin shared, sometimes the behavior you're seeing at home, we are or aren't seeing that at school or in the classroom. And sometimes having your child know that we're partnering in the school sometimes just makes that bridge. Sissy, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I can't believe I forgot to touch on the most important thing that's dear to me, and part of why I'm a counselor is just know that whatever the family is going through, your child is also going through. You may think that they don't know what's going on, but they do feel things, and they see things, and they hear things. So let me give you an example. Let's pretend a family is going through a divorce, okay? There are certain behaviors that children automatically have when parents are separating or going through a divorce, because subconsciously in the child's behavior, what happens is they are subconsciously doing things that would cause the parents to have to come together to address the behavior. So you might not understand why your child is doing XYZ or not doing XYZ, or this huge shift, but it's because they're having to adjust to what you're also having to adjust to, and they might not know how to communicate that in words. So when kids don't know how to communicate or talk about what's really happening, that's where the behavior shows up. That's also the case if your family has gone through any major shift, a job loss, homelessness. You used to have your own place. Now you're living at auntie house and there's 12 y'all living in the house. You know what I mean? So kids respond to everything that they're going through, what they've been through, and what you're going through. So just imagine, before starting your day each day, you might be a person that before you can really start it off positively and right, like you need that cup of coffee, right? Or you need to pick up that newspaper and read the news, or you need to go out for that morning jog, or whatever the case may be. What does your child need? What might your child need before starting the day? So just imagine a child trying to adjust, manage, and deal with what you're having to manage, adjust, and deal with yourself. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much. Any last minute thoughts from the panel on this particular question? All right, I'm going to give one last thought. I think sometimes the behavior and the feelings feel so big and you're like, oh my gosh, why are they overreacting? But the worst scenario would be if they're not showing anything and they shove everything in, because that results in anxiety and depression. And so you want to find a healthy way for them to get those feelings out, even if it's uncomfortable. It's better to get it out, because that's what exercise does. That's what talking, that's what therapy does. That's what counseling and talking to somebody. So finding a way to get those feelings out and then helping your child navigate how they can do that in a way that might be, well, a little healthier. And everybody's communication style is very different. I mean, one of my children, was very animated, was very emotional. And I'm like, gosh, relax, calm down. But that didn't help. That was just dismissing how she feels. And so I think all of us, and it's funny, you're sitting here on a panel with people that have mental health backgrounds, and we're telling you, we don't necessarily have the answers either. We may have a little bit more education, but we all are experiencing these same struggles. And I think that's the benefit of having these types of panels and reaching out and asking for help, even if it's just a conversation with somebody at your school, or reaching out and talking to your healthcare providers. There are resources available. You do not have to deal with this alone, because we've all been there. If you've been a parent or an auntie or a grandma, we have felt, we know where you're coming from. And so just know that we're here to support you in that process. Okay, so I'm going to move on to question 5, because I'm looking at the chat. We've got some great resources that are being put in the link. And I will also draw a reference at the end. There will be a slide that has additional resources and a live one that's on the parent portal, as well as the under student services, where the mental health panel is, where it gives you clickable links, actually activities and places that you can go for activities during the summer that are low cost or free. But I will reiterate, the programs that are available on the school campus run by the school district, so our summer school programs, as well as our CARES after school or summer session, those are free. So if you're looking for low cost or subsidized, there are a variety of resources, and we'll try to continue to gather those for you. Okay, so we're going to go to question 4, and this is going to go to Sissy, Chris, and Kimber. How do I support my child's transition back to being in a classroom full-time next year? And is it too late to sign up for summer school anywhere? Oh, I just did the intro. There we go. So there you go, Sissy. I was ahead of myself.
I know, I'll be as quick as possible. The first thing is be positive. Like, the more you can find a way to be positive with your child in the language about going back to school is really going to help them to be positive about it. The next thing is you can do is go ahead and start getting your child on a schedule, right? Some type of structure, so that they can start getting their mind and their body back ready to being on a structured school schedule with some rigor. So, like, you know, with the way we've been functioning with the pandemic, kids have really been able to kind of sleep in and have a lot of flexibility around when they do things. That's going to change, right? So we don't want August to come and suddenly they have to try to do that like tomorrow. So, you know, just gradually start getting them ready for structure. As far as the rigor, you know, even though it's going to be summer and fun time, try to at least maintain, you know, 1 to 2 academic things that your child can do that can also be fun for them. So, like, say, for example, children should be reading every single day. So let's say you have a child who does not like to read. They cannot stand, like, they will avoid reading like the plague, right? How about have a dialogue about what would make you more interested in reading? What types of things do you like to read about, which might make you want to read a little bit more, right? So that's another thing that you can get them used to doing. Or maybe when you're shopping, you know, having them support you with practicing with the math around the money and the change and things of that nature, right? And then the next thing you can do that's really, really important is, I feel like kids get anxious and they have anxiety and maybe even a little fear about school, especially if they're going to a new school, if they have all these questions that are unanswered. So allow your child to ask you any questions that they might have, and bring up school yourself, so that if they have any, even if you can't answer it, hey, well, you know what? Let's try calling the school tomorrow and finding out and asking some of these questions that you may have. And also remind them, I know in our district, is when kids go back to school, they are, you know, given sort of a way of being on campus. You know what I mean? Like at our school, we call it the Bel Air way, right? So they might have questions about, well, can we still do this? Can we, you know, play Foursquare? Can we still use that bathroom over there? Just know and remind them that they're going to find all that out when they go back to school. And then for you, the more you can make a connection with the teacher early, the better. It's going to establish a relationship from the beginning. Every teacher also has their own classroom procedures and structures, the way they do things. You want to get to know the teacher because you want to know what the expectations are, right? You don't want to be surprised about what the expectations are in the classroom. And you definitely don't want to later down the line not have an ongoing form of communication with your child's teacher, so you don't feel like if something happens to go left or your child is getting overly frustrated, you don't want that phone call or that email or that first interaction to feel like it's a negative thing. So the more you can set that up in the beginning too, that will help.
Thank you.
Sissy is a tough act to follow. She covers so much. So as a parent, whose children have remained in distance learning, I have a lot of questions about this because, my sons haven't been back on campus yet. And so I know it's, going to be a different type of return. And, especially for younger kids too, that haven't been on campus before, they are not used to being away from their parents, for longer stretches of time. There's definitely going to be an adjustment. So I think something that this summer that, parents can do and that I plan to do with my kids is, just, checking in with them about how they feel as we venture out more in the community, get more comfortable, being in restaurants or being in locations with more people where we've been sort of sheltered at home and have maybe had a very tight-knit group that we've interacted with. And so it's going to be a big difference when we're in a classroom with, however many students, are allowed. And so I think just really talking about, any fears they might have, having an open dialogue with your kids. And I think that's something that, we'll be doing in our family. And just normalizing that it's okay to have those fears, that, even us as adults, that we have those feelings too. And as we're getting used to new environments, that, once again, that are sort of all brand new. And so that's sort of some of the things that that I've been thinking about as we return.
Thank you, Cree.
Thank you, Cree and Sissy, and especially Cree for bringing up about a family being in full distance learning, because that was one of the points I wanted to look at for our families. I have gone out to a restaurant once, and it was last month for my husband's birthday, and it was somewhere isolated. So even though I've been coming on campuses and been doing stuff, it's an adjustment for me as an adult. So what is it going to be like for our children, especially those that haven't been on campus, as you mentioned, because they're very little, and this is, they spent kindergarten early, they spent a little bit of first grade. And so it's already a big shift coming to a longer day, or the ones that have stayed in full distance learning. So what I'd like to look at is, what are some things we've talked about already? Summer school, the CARES program, activities in the community. I have a few kids who are doing gymnastics, they're doing dance, they're doing taekwondo, maybe they're doing something through the rec center. That gets them used to being around other kids in an activity. I know that some of the summer school programs are going to have a little bit of counseling support. So for example, I'm going to be at Wren Avenue, my school, for a couple of days. And even though we're primarily full with summer school, other sites, I think we might be able to work that out, that if a child wanted to go to summer school and in that grade, I think that there is that possibility, and Stephanie will correct me if I'm wrong. But I think anything we can do with routines. I love the fact that Sissy said, make the connections with your teachers. A lot of our teachers come and help at walkthrough. I mean, my baby is 7 months old, so I was waddling around at walkthroughs and helping out at my schools, and like, why are you out here, Kimber? But, I wanted to see my families. I missed my kids and I missed my family. So I was out there. A lot of our teachers help. It's getting them back on the campus, getting them familiar. Sorry, I wrote myself a couple notes. I wanted to make sure. Talking about the class expectations, our schools are really going to be very aware of how to help our kids connect, because again, we have the Bel Air way, at Bel Air, and all of our schools have expectations behavior, but it's so important to build that relationship, so that I get to know you as my student, that I get to know you as someone in the culture of my classroom. So we're going to be having morning meetings. We're going to be doing things that make the kids feel comfortable. It's really about building relationships and connections again. So talking about that, talking it up, like at Wren, we're artists, and we're updating our vision, and we're going to update our mission. So anything that we can get them to see and maybe look at some pictures, like we have a slideshow for our open house. So if at the school that your children are going to, be at, look and see what they have for their open house, and get excited about the next grade.
Thank you, Kimber. Wendy, any comments in the chat that we need to address or respond to?
Yeah, there was one specific question from a parent whose child is having increased anxiety at the moment and is keeps requesting to sleep with her. And she's asking if that's okay to help her feel safe, or if she should encourage her to sleep in her own bed. And the child is in 4th grade.
Okay. So one, I do want to make a reference. We do have the previous recordings, and we have a very a webinar that's very resourceful with kind of conversations about your child having anxiety and depression. So if it's something that's beyond just the sleeping and you're concerned with the other areas of anxiety, please take note and watch that video as well. Anyone from the panel have any last minute thoughts or ideas around responding to the question in the chat? Okay. We will circle back around and see if we can get you an answer. Sometimes we just have to think with that. So keep it going. And I know we've seen a couple of comments in the chat around the CYC that has a great resource for summer programs, and it's very low cost or subsidized, and that's a 5-day a week. So that's another resource as well. Robin, did you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I saw something in the chat about board games and different games that you can play that are educational. And I think that if you're thinking about kind of worried about academics and academic progress, that over the summer playing just simple board games like Uno and memory games and things like that, that counts as academics.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
basically all we've been doing in the classrooms at my school, is playing games and learning how to be together again. But that's something that you can do with your families. So thanks for that, Claudia.
Great point. Okay, so we're going to continue the conversation around screen time and social media, and Brian and Kimber are going to respond to this question. How do I support my child to navigate social media apps and platforms safely? And there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, so I have 3 children of my own that range from age 8 to 15. So my wife and I are outnumbered. We've been doing this for a while. We've been playing zone defense, and you know, we've constantly been trying to support and protect our children, you know, when they navigate social media and whatnot. And so a lot of parents don't realize this, but most apps, including the kids apps, they have recommended age requirements. So I always encourage parents to enforce that. A lot of people are just like, I don't know if it's okay, and maybe, and you know, do your friends have it? But if you look, there's actually, you know, the apps themselves, I think by law they have to have an age requirement. So even kids apps, you can find the age requirement. They have apps that are, you know, for children who are 6 and under, or, you know, 8 or under, 10 or under, whatever it is. TikTok itself, I think TikTok says it's 13. There are actual parental websites you can go to that give you better guidance, and they actually recommend, I want to say like 15 or even 16 for TikTok, only because there sometimes sensitive information pops up. So just be aware of that, you know, and enforce the age requirement. I can't emphasize enough how much, you know, you should just monitor it closely. I always tell parents, you know, understand the websites and the apps that your child is visiting. And I mean, there's so many new ones popping up every day. They get bored with one, they move to another. It's really hard to keep up. I totally understand. I'm not a tech person myself, but you know, I try to be, just so I can see what's going on. But you know, with my own kids, I've seen a lot of like in-app ads or questionnaires or surveys that lead you into, you know, some questionable things. So you really need to be aware of what it is. You know, my daughter, she kind of went down she was doing, it was a kids TikTok. I forget what it's called, but it's like the kids version. And there was this one where it was like, you know, a questionnaire where they were giving away a lot of, you know, goodies, and it was like some kind of contest, and she wanted us to enter our information and we could win stuff, but it looked really sketchy, and we were just like, no, you know, just, you know, forget about it. And but it's things like that. Like if a child didn't have that awareness, or the parent, you know, didn't talk to their child about it, they could enter, you know, really sensitive information, and it could lead to more problems. I always tell parents to be aware of imposters that are posing as your children. I hate to say it, but there's a lot of, you know, just weird people out there who like to disrupt the online environment, and they try to, they pop into Zoom sessions. They try to, you know, hack all types of accounts. So just be aware of that. know your child's, their network of friends, but also the parents. I have my daughter, she talks to some of her friends and we all know who they are. Um, but there was a couple that I didn't know. My wife knew, but I didn't. But I just reached out and I said, hey, I'm Elise is my daughter. I see that our children are talking. I just want to let you know, my wife and I, we monitor, the conversation and what's going on frequently. So we'll let you know if there's any concerns. Hopefully you can do that. You have my information. Please reach out if you have any questions or concerns. So I encourage parents to do that. Reach out to the parents that they're talking to. You can do all of this by setting parental control. So I can see, my wife can see, we can see who everybody that my daughter talks to, all the videos she watches. If she posts a picture, she loves posting. Well, she doesn't post pictures, but she takes pictures of like our dog, and her food and stuff like that. And so she doesn't post it, but we can see anything. Anytime she takes a picture, we can see it. So that's all done in the parental controls and settings. So make sure you know how to use those tools for sure. Couple others, I always tell parents to guard their location. A lot of apps these days ask for, is it okay to use your location? And it's scary. I didn't realize how close they can pinpoint, where people are. So, if your child gives them access, then whoever's, using that app, I guess if they're in a group, they can actually see like within a few block radius of like where this, the person who's using the app is. So just be aware of that. We don't let my daughter, since she's the youngest, we don't let her use her apps behind closed doors. She's got to be at least in a room where we can hear the conversation. A lot of the videos she watches, like I said, it's kids TikTok, so it's supposed to be safe, but sometimes, some things slip through the cracks. So, we've heard a couple of things and we're like, what are they talking about? So we've gone over there and looked, and it's just one of those videos that kind of, I guess, was maybe on the questionable side and they let it get through. I don't know, but just, keep them close so you can hear what's going on. The last two things I would say is probably discuss appropriate versus inappropriate posts if they're at that age where they're actually posting stuff. Not to give birth dates, addresses, phone numbers, any type of sensitive information like that. My daughter, she doesn't have that ability to post anything. So, but as they get older, like my older sons technically can, but they're not big into that, luckily, as much anymore. So, the last thing I would say is just, make family fun of it. Make it an open dialogue thing. So my kids and I, we like to watch a lot of the cooking videos and the pranks, and we do a lot of household pranks on each other. But we make a lot of the food ones too. Like we have the Uncrustables in the fridge, and so my son wanted to make the donuts. He saw a video on how to make donuts with Uncrustables, where you cut out the center and well, I'm not going to get into it, but anyways, it was really good. They tasted amazing. They tasted just like donuts. It was really cool. We didn't have to go to a donut shop. Now we have access to make our own donuts. Same with my daughter. This weekend we made a tofu scramble. I've never had tofu in my life, but it was better than scrambled eggs. It was so good. So, it's very enriched. There's a lot of enrichment to it. You can learn a lot of arts and crafts. You can learn a lot of cooking. So definitely make it a family, family fun event, or, make fun out with it, I should say. So that's pretty much all I have on this topic.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. You basically covered most of what I was going to cover too, but I want to just start off with letting our parents know. And also there are some parents who are also educators, because I saw some of the people who responded in the room. There's a website called commonsensemedia.org. Yes. And within that, I made a slide on it, so we'll see that at the very end. But in that, there are things called Parents Need to Know. There's cell phone, screen time, and social media. There's privacy and online safety. Some of the topics include bullying, posting pictures online, what age to use before social media. You can filter by the age of your child. There's parents' guides. Personally, I look at those too, even though I look at the educator side as well, about like teaching kids about appropriate posts. But I didn't know what Discord was until the spring, because a teacher was asking, Kimber, what's this? My students are using this. Is this okay? And I said, I have no idea what it is. So things like TikTok, I know a little bit. I'm not in that realm, Roblox, YouTube for kids versus regular YouTube. So commonsensemedia.org is a really great resource. Again, as an adult, sometimes I forget and have turned my location on for something, and we all have to be careful about some of the ads. And I do Facebook, and I have to watch sometimes. Some of those surveys are really cool and fun, and maybe I want to do it, but then I have to stop and think, what personal information are they trying to gather from me? How, so I, as an adult, have to model. Again, mine are little, but then also that helps me model for the other adults in my life, as well as the kids that I'm working with. So again, the Common Sense Media, I can't say enough about it because it collects resources from all other places and it compiles it in one space. So as an adult, it helps do the research for you, and then you can narrow down what you need support. So thank you.
Can I just say it real quick? That was the website I was actually referring to, was Common Sense Media. In terms of, apps have their own age requirement that they, is their recommendation of what it is. But Common Sense Media actually has, they do the research like Kimber was saying, and they have a more appropriate gauge of what, the content level and age appropriateness of it. So I would maybe, follow them versus, what the app is recommending.
Great, thank you. Any last minute thoughts from the panel, and then we'll go to the chat to do a check-in with Wendy. All right, Wendy, anything in the chat?
There were some questions about the age ranges for the former video series, but I think we have those handled. And then Sissy shared that we are a reminder to parents to check with their pediatrician. They can also have some good ideas about how to support you at this time.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we're going to wrap it up with our last question. This is going to go to Sissy, Cree, and then Brian. How do I celebrate the resilience of my child navigating this past year? Sissy?
I'm going to go right back to what I said earlier. Really, really be positive and be specific in naming the different things that your child has been able to overcome, as well as yourself and your family, right? So let me give you an example of what that looks like. When I talk to my students, this recent week that school is ending, and the teachers too, I've said, really give yourself a good hug and a pat on the back and look in the mirror and say, I did that, right? We were faced with a year that we've never seen before, and none of us knew what to do. And the pandemic itself, that was just one thing. That wasn't all the things that we were dealing with in our families, in our households, in our minds, in our finances, in our hearts, right? So the fact that we are still here another day to be able to talk about it and express and give ourselves that hug or that high five or that look in the mirror, that is worth celebrating. Also, teach your children what it looks like to give themselves and others grace. Have them look up what grace means, and you guys talk about it, right? Because during this pandemic, did we do everything so-called right, whatever that is? Probably not. Were we comfortable making the shifts and doing all the things that we needed to do to just get up and breathe the next day? Probably not. I know for me, my world was shaken. I'm a counselor. I'm completely used to being present with people. And what I mean by that is physically present. I do my job my best when I'm physically present, right? And so for that to be out of my control, that was tough, right? But then, and children are hard on themselves too sometimes, just like us adults. But giving grace is a way of like minimizing that harshness and just celebrating that, like, this is where we were and this is where we are now. And it helps them to celebrate what they can do, even if they thought that they couldn't. So, once again, I would just say the conversation around celebrating, what they've overcome and where they are now, and what they have to look forward to in the future. And also letting it be okay if there's some things that they're still not comfortable with, but you're celebrating what they've gotten through, and that's going to help them to really, really feel like they can get through the next thing that they're not comfortable with, or that sort of unknown next step. So
Thank you,
yeah,
Sissy.
I'm big on celebrating.
I would say a lot of the same. I think the first thing is to acknowledge that we've all experienced losses in some way this year, some much more than others. But it's important that we acknowledge those and that we just don't, gloss over that and ignore it. But there have been a lot of great wins too. There are things that we've been able to do that we wouldn't have been able, to take part in if we didn't have this year. And so I think looking at those things, we had slower mornings, and that was, a really big plus in so many families. I know that wasn't always easy, for working parents, but for some it worked. For my sons, they gained a level of independence that was really neat to see. They perfected scrambled eggs, and they were really proud of that. And that was something that was just silly and fun. But, those slow mornings allowed for, more luxurious breakfasts, not just a piece of toast in the car. And so, there are things like that. My other son, got really great at magic tricks. And so he was able to, watch YouTube videos that he wouldn't have watched and learn how to, do that. We did bingo with our grandparents over the iPad, to keep them safe. And so there were, some special moments, and we were creative. And so it's remembering those things, and acknowledging that, yes, we did, miss out on, many things, and some of us lost family members, and some of us, experienced some really, horrible tragedies, or bared witness to them. There were also some good things that happened. And so, just kind of pointing those out. Something that I put in, I think will be added to the resources is a time capsule. And it's a resource, it's printable, or you don't have to print it if you don't have a printer at home, but it's something that you could go through with your child. You can look back on the year and ask really great questions. And it's a way to sort of revisit the past year, but also look forward. And it's something that we've been trying to do, as a family, like, oh, what should we put in our time? Oh, we'll throw a couple masks in our time capsule. Maybe when you graduate from high school, we'll look back at this and, have a good laugh about, what it was that, that maybe we did this year. So anyway, they're available. And it's a good way, I think, to have these conversations and to really sort of get in touch with what those, small, wins are, but that were really significant for our kids.
Thank you, Cree. Brian, you want to finish us off?
Sure. I don't really know how after that. I mean, Sissy and Cree basically covered everything. They said exactly what I would say. I can't emphasize enough about, just reflecting on, this past year, asking your child what the hardest part was, asking them what they learned from it, asking them, what they plan to do when they return. The only thing I would, maybe recommend also is turning these questions into like a series of activities, maybe during dinner time, or just setting aside 5 minutes a day, like when you get home from work, sit down with your child, or maybe before work in the morning, and just ask these questions and have this guided discussion. I think having these discussions, they help children better process what they experienced, and not only feel better about that experience, but they learn and grow from it. So try to make an activity out of it and continue the conversation throughout the summer, since there will be plenty of time.
Great.
That's pretty much all I have.
Thank you so much. Any last minute thoughts from the question? From the panelists, sorry, from the question, from the panelists. Okay. Wendy, anything in the chat that we want to finish before we close out tonight?
There is nothing in the chat, but we did have a shared time capsule idea, so be sure to click on that.
Yep, and we will add that as part of the last slide as well. Dr. Clark, anything you want to say before we close it down? Didn't need to put you on the spot.
That's all right. I just want to just thank everyone for sharing all your expertise or whatnot with our families, and shoot, I'm even learning stuff here. So so again, very, very helpful. And again, I can't thank you all enough. So thank you.
Well, thank you. All right. So for those of us that joined us live, we hope you grabbed a nugget or two and enjoyed the conversation. I just want to thank the panelists as well. As you will see coming up on this slide, we do have one last conversation, Open Conversations, which is on June 22nd. And after tonight, I definitely think a revisiting of some of the resources that were shared in previous webinars, kind of collapsing them all into some ideas for this last one, will be here live on the 22nd at 5 o'clock. And then we do have some additional resources that are available that are going to be coming up. And these will be available on the district website and also clickable. So with that, we thank you for joining us tonight, and have a great last day of school. That's amazing.